Hello and welcome to the Significant Care webinar. My name is Geraldine Rogers. I'm the Significant 7 lead at NELFT. This tool has been created in conjunction with carers who helped us create a tool that would help recognise deterioration for the people that they loved and looked after at home. The tool was worked in conjunction with Care City, UCLP and Healthy London Partnership. The tool is free to download either in a booklet, which can go through the printers, or to print from a PDF file. In order to go through, it's probably helpful at the start to print out the tool. So as I chat you through the tool, it will make more sense in realising the tool and making it come to life. Significant Care is a tool that I've created based on the essence of Significant 7. This is about looking at the softer signs of deterioration, sometimes signs that we would notice before we have a clinical presentation, whether that's smelly urine, urinary tract infection, high temperature, etc. Let me tell you a little bit more about the tool. So we're launching this now because we feel during this time of uncertainty in light of COVID, we thought it would be really helpful to give you a tool that give you guidance and clear direction of what to do. The tool is colour coded, so it's very clear on some actions you may need to do. Remember, this tool is only a guidance because obviously the person that you care for or that you love, that you're looking after, when you're there in front of them, it can be a very different story altogether. So this is a guide to help you, to direct you in what could be going on and what you might need to do under different circumstances. So the first sign is confusion, is the signs and symptoms. So when you're looking after somebody, you will know yourselves is what is different today. You'll be looking what's different about this person today. So this could be someone's maybe just normally very orientated, etc., and suddenly they're very confused. So suddenly thinking something's up. I need to chat through that. What could that be? So if they're orientated in time and place, speaking clearly, completely orientated, then there's no changes and that's absolutely fine. So, and if there's a change and suddenly they're a bit more muddled or restless or agitated, then you start looking at it more and you go through the tool and it identifies what you should be looking at. Are people seeing things that aren't there? And maybe they're hallucinating, etc. So it kind of says to you, something isn't quite right. And then on the actions, it guides you what you might need to do. So whether that's speak to your GP, contact 111, etc., based on what you are. And of course, then there's the next signs where we could go into a critical picture for that someone. And then you kind of have to ask the questions, could this be sepsis? Because is there slurred speech? Is there severe pain? No urine, severe breathlessness, maybe they haven't passed any urine in a day, or haven't feeling that awful feeling, that feeling of doom, or their skin is patchy or mottled. So the guide literally tells you all those things that you might need to look out for, and then the actions and the traffic light system of what you might need to do. And more often than not, I think bear in mind when suddenly someone confused and they're not normally confused, you kind of have to look actually, is the underlying sign as an infection? Because an infection can often cause confusion. For those who have dementia, you have to look and see what is their normal. So for some people, their normal is that they're pleasantly confused and suddenly their behaviour changes and they're more restless or agitated. Then you look and follow the guidance. Or sometimes somebody might be very normally their behaviour is quite loud and orientated, and suddenly they go very quiet. Again, you need to look at that concept as well, because you have to know what's normal for that person. So it's really important when you're measuring deterioration that you know what is the baseline for that person, because then you will know when things start to go wrong. The second element is mobility. So mobility is a change in mobility. The walking, mobilizing down the stairs can also be an indicator that something goes wrong. So for mobility is look at, how do they normally, how do they walk? Is it normally with the Zimmer frame, with the walking stick? So know what's normal, what the risks of falling are. So you kind of would know all those things. And then have they developed all those signs? Because sometimes suddenly someone will collapse, or sometimes if somebody has an infection, they can fall as well. So look at all those things and check and see, have they sustained an injury, etc. So I think, as with anything, there's pointers on the page of this that will indicate you of what you might need to do. It's not an exclusive list by any means, but it gives you a good grounding of what you might need to look for. The next thing on the list is skin. Now, we can never underestimate the skin, because indeed it is the biggest organ of the body, and also the one that we probably don't pay enough attention to. And early recognition is a key to preventing skin damage. So looking for signs and symptoms is very helpful in this area. Again, the tool will guide you onto what's low, what's moderate, or what could be critical even, on what you need to look out for. And accompanying the tool is a very good guide on to do skin protection and also prevention of pressure ulcers, a tool that was kindly designed by the NELFT Pressure Ulcer Group, which was led by Deborah Wickens. And it's a really good tool within the packs, which will help and guide you of what you need to do. So the next thing we looked at is toilet. So when we say toilet, this is where we've looked at urine and bowel pattern, which might indicate when something is wrong. I think we can never underestimate this area, and so we've done quite a few pages on this area to support you, because an awful lot of colds that come in are normally linked to either it's constipation, or a urine infection, or dehydration. So if we could look at those things just alone, we can get many things right. So you have to, again, know what's normal for that person. When I say what's normal for that person, you just know. So for some people, they will get up and want to go to the toilet immediately first thing in the morning. So that's what's normal for them. For some will go, that'll be the last thing they do at night. Or for some, what's normal is that they might go 3 times a week. So know what's normal for that person. So it's a really helpful thing to know. And then kind of look and see what they're experiencing. Is it pain, etc. I think that the biggest underestimation sometimes with bowel management is sometimes there could be diarrhea, but in fact that is overflow, and the person may be severely constipated, and what you're getting is that overflow, and people treat it as diarrhea, and what we get is a very impacted bowel, which isn't very pleasant at all and can be quite dangerous. So the guides that we've given you there, so on the page again you will have the signs and symptoms, the actions of what you might need to do, and accompanying that as well, we've got the Bristol stool chart. Now the Bristol stool chart breaks down the stools into types. So you've got type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and 5, 6, and 7. And to accompany that as well, we've done a stool advice to support each of the types, so that you know. So if you're looking at 1 and 2, the likelihood is that's hard to pass, and that those people may likely to be constipated. So we've given you advice on what to do, looking at diet, etc. And the importance of, yes, you may increase or have a high fibre diet, but if you do, just make sure that you drink plenty of fluids at the same time. Because, of course, if you have a lot of fibre and don't drink enough, it can dry you up as much as a prune. So you're just thinking you need to look at that carefully. The next one is ideal consistency, is your type 3 and type 4. and 5, 6, and 7 can be indication of inflammation or an infection, but it could be if you've got irritable bowel syndrome, that might be normal for that person, but you'd have to look and see what they've eaten, etc. So the guidance will be very clear on what you might need to do. Accompanying the toilet angle, we also have in your booklet as well is a urine chart. And in the urine chart, it's a urine colour chart. It'll guide you on what colours to look for. So, 1, 2, and 3 is pretty normal. So you've got it's a pale or clear colour of urine rather, and 4 to 7, suddenly you need to be drinking a little bit more. And I'm sure there's many as the day like mine, you look and you think, actually, I haven't been my best at drinking today, and we need to look and monitor that, because ironically, by drinking more fluids, looking at using that guide as an indicator can not alone keep you hydrated, but can keep people orientated, less likely to be confused, more sharper and better concentration, and that's for us all. The other element on what this tool offers you is also SBAR. Now, SBAR stands for Situation, Background, Assessment, and Recommendations. This is about when we ring and ask for help and how we're able to articulate that message so that we're able to say, look, I'm worried about my loved one, the person I look after, because this tool has been devised for if you're looking after a loved one, if you're looking after someone in a residential home or in domiciliary care, so that you can kind of say, when you ring up and ask for help, is that this is what I've done and this is why I'm worried. So you explain. So in terms of the S is the situation, is you identify yourself, because you have to remember the person that you're ringing and asking for help is seeing the person through your eyes and through your voice and what you're saying. So in order to articulate that message, it's very important that you get that message as clearly and succinctly across as you possibly can. So identify yourself and identify the person that you're looking after. So, and on the tool, it kind of gives you an example. So for this, it says, hello, my name is Mary Taylor and I'm looking after my husband, Bill. The reason I'm calling today is that Mr. Taylor is very unwell. His confusion has deteriorated. He has a temperature and his urine is dark in colour, and that is new for him. B is for background. Explain your role. So you could say, I am Mrs. Taylor, or I'm a carer looking after Mrs. Taylor, or, you explain. So this one is like, so Mr. Taylor is an 89-year-old man. He lives at home. He's got carers twice a day who look after his hygiene needs, and he's got Parkinson's disease. So whatever the medical history here is of that person. So have they got diabetes? Have they got arthritis, heart disease, etc. You explain the background there of what's wrong. Again, you're setting the scene for that person, so you're able to tell them exactly a little bit about the person, because bear in mind, you've got a small window, a small element of time to get these important messages across. Assess the situation. So you will say, I've used the significant care guide, and according to the guide, confusion has deteriorated, or maybe they've got severe breathlessness and that's linking to COVID, etc. So it may or may not. So just to point that out, because this is a general guide, because although we're very COVID orientated at the moment of what's going on with the world, and severe breathlessness will be a common theme, but for also we need to look at a broad sense of deterioration as well, because we need to look at all the signs and symptoms. And you explain, it appears he might have an infection and I'm really worried about him. So the recommendation then is, what will you need at this time, and what do I need to do? So that's in relation to the what you call the SBAR. So the SBAR again stands for explaining the situation, explaining the background, What have you done to be able to, how have you observed, and what tools have you used to ascertain that information? And if you are in a care home, you may have the sophistication of having monitoring tools, so a temperature or a blood pressure, a cough, etc. So on this situation as well, you would add in those clinical observations that you have undertaken, so that you're able to create that picture as well for the person that you're ringing up and you're concerned about, because you are the voice of that person and their advocate, and how to seek help at this time. So obviously this is a moment in time to describe significant care and how it can be helpful in the care that you do in looking after your loved one and the person that you care for at home, or the person that you care for in a care home or residential home. As I said, it is only a guide, because obviously you're going to be looking after the person that you look after, and you'll know them better than any other. But it's a guide to help you, to direct you into what could be possibly wrong, but also to give you some solutions to do firsthand. Because by doing sometimes the simple solutions, or doing the little things, so whether it's drinking a glass of water, introducing more fruit in your diet, by mobilizing and keeping supple, that we can prevent things from happening, and monitor deterioration, but also sometimes prevent deterioration, because it is those simple measures that really can make a difference to the people that we look after. I'd like to thank you for watching the webinar, and we would be delighted to receive feedback, so or any comments. So please click on the link below and link it into UCLP. I'd be really grateful. So thank you so much, and take good care. Bye-bye.